At Boardroom Insiders, we focus on one thing: senior executives. We tell you who they are and what they care about so you can engage them more effectively. Now, we're heavily focused on covering Fortune 500 companies. So when the Fortune 500 2020 list came out in May, we noticed headlines about how there were an unprecedented number of women CEOs leading Fortune 500 companies. But when you looked past the headlines, it was really only 37 women out of 500. And here we are a few months later, and 2 of those women have left and been replaced by men. So now we're down to 35. It's still a record. In 2019, there were 33, but it's still a really surprisingly and depressingly low number, especially when you consider that 25% of C-level roles are held by women today. So if they're not in the CEO's chair, where are they? Well, we know they're heavily in HR and marketing, but even in the Fortune 500, they don't hold a majority of those 2 roles, those top 2 roles. We know they're not CFOs. Only 12% of Fortune 500 CFOs are women. But what I think is really interesting is what's happening in the technology leadership space. 25% of Fortune 500 CIOs are women. That includes divisional CIO roles, regional, as well as corporate. And if you factor in other technology leadership roles like CTO, Chief Digital Officer, and Chief Security Officer, that number goes up to 33%. And the reason why I think this is really interesting at this point is because if you layer in COVID-19 and the impact of that on business, we saw companies across all industries accelerating their digital initiatives, elevating the importance of technology and the role that technology leaders are playing at these companies. We know that the CEO of Microsoft said earlier this year that after COVID hit, he saw 2 to 3 years of digital transformation happen in just a couple of months. So if you think about that, I'm wondering if in a few years we will see some of these women who led really well at this difficult time and helped transform and shore up their companies, waltz into that CEO role. It's just something to look for that I'm going to be tracking in the future. We also looked at who are the women in the C-suite in the Fortune 500. We looked at a group of roughly 1,000 women, and we looked at their backgrounds. And we can do this all with our BI Pro tool in just a few clicks. So if you're our customer, you can do it too. But we looked at the leadership factories for women in the C-suite. What that means is we look at what companies do they come up through? Where do they work early on in their careers that kind of put them on that path? The number 1 leadership factory for this group of women, IBM. We saw, as far as industries are concerned, most of these women started in consulting, technology, or financial services. Behind IBM, we saw GE, PwC, McKinsey, Ernst & Young, JP Morgan Chase, Citigroup, Dell, HP, and B of A. We also looked at their education. Where did they go to school? The number 1 leadership factory from an education standpoint was University of Pennsylvania, followed closely by Harvard, Stanford, Northwestern, Columbia, and University of Michigan. As far as hobbies are concerned, these women enjoy traveling, mentoring others, reading, and running. So that's some insight into today's Fortune 500 women leaders. We will be bringing you more information on different roles and different segments in the C-suite in coming weeks. Until then, thank you for listening.